Wisconsin's governor called on the National Guard following a night of rage in Milwaukee. Demonstrations over the fatal police shooting of Sylville Smith, who was armed during a traffic stop, turned violent. Smith was African American, as was the officer who shot him.
Buildings burned on Milwaukee's north side. Police in riot gear. Protesters setting cars on fire, tossing bricks at squad cars, sending one officer to the hospital. Chaos erupting after a 23-year-old suspect is shot and killed by cops during a foot chase. It all started with a traffic stop. Milwaukee Mayor Tom Barrett.
This stop took place because two officers who were there to make sure that there was order in this neighborhood, and they felt there was suspicious activity going on. As it turned out, two individuals, the gun was a stolen gun. The officer didn't know it at the time, but there were 23 rounds in that gun.
Barrett says the officer, with 6 years on the force, ordered the suspect to drop his weapon, but he refused to. He was shot twice in the chest and arm. The mayor says the officers involved were wearing body cameras. Tensions remained high into the morning, with some protesters vowing to continue the unrest.
No, it's not going to end today. I can't tell you it's going to end tomorrow. I don't know when it's going to end. But it's for y'all to start. We're not the ones that's killing us. Y'all killing us. We can't make a change if y'all don't change.
Peace rallies were held Sunday with city and state leaders calling for calm.
Just praying for a change and for everybody not to keep on just doing the wrong things, and not for everybody to be burning down things and everybody get taken to jail every night. And when you turn on the news, you're supposed to see the weather and things, but now when you turn on the news, you see that somebody just got shot or something just got burned down.
Police are investigating a string of violent attacks on officers in New York and Georgia this weekend. We begin in central Georgia, where police are searching for the person who shot and killed Officer Tim Smith. Smith was responding to a call of a suspicious person when he was shot after coming upon the subject and then getting out of his car. And then an officer in a separate incident in Marietta, Georgia, just outside of Atlanta. Well, that officer was shot and is expected to survive. He and two other officers were responding to a car break-in when one of the two suspects opened fire. Officers wounded one suspect who is expected to survive. And then in Long Island, New York, an officer is recovering from surgery after being stabbed in the face while responding to a 911 call. Police say the suspect, Mark Curraway, was armed with knives when he slashed the officer. Another officer shot the suspect, who is in critical condition.
We begin tonight with breaking news out of JFK Airport. Police now responding to reports, and I say reports, that shots were fired inside Terminal 8. Now, the call came over police radio at around 9:30 about a possible shooting inside Terminal 8. Witnesses reported hearing two shots. We're hearing reports from inside that terminal of people running, people being panicked, the terminal being evacuated. At this point, though, no reports of anyone being hurt, no reports of anyone being shot. But we can tell you police are there. Port Authority is there. They're all trying to figure out exactly what happened. Pix 11's McGee Hickey also on the scene tonight, trying to fill us in on what is going on. McGee.
Well, Corey, as you see behind me, Terminal 8, the entranceway for cars and buses, has been shut down right now. Now, Terminal 8 is where American Airlines and American Eagle planes take off and land. We're told it is on lockdown right now after reports of two shots being fired. Now, police cannot confirm at this point. Port Authority police cannot confirm that shots were fired. Witnesses say two shots were fired.
Certainly very disturbing to hear reports that in the airport. You know, as you're talking about that, I'm checking Twitter. And among the people inside the airport is Luke Robert Mason. He's been tweeting from the moment this happened, initially saying lots of running and screaming, but I'm safe, telling people that follow him that he's okay. He followed it up actually just a few moments ago, seconds ago, saying everyone is safe. There's no danger where he is. So that is good news. So again, there was panic. There was fear inside Terminal 8.
Comes to us courtesy of Tom Parfit for Express UK, who reports that the French government has urged citizens to welcome refugees into their homes because they say the country's migrant centers are just too crowded. There are currently 147 reception centers across France, he writes, but these are in massive demand as Desperate refugees are continuing to flee the Middle East. Now, the housing minister, Emmanuel Cross, has pledged to build 50 more centers before the end of the month in a desperate bid to ease the crisis. She's also called on the French people to open up their homes to migrants in need. Look, folks, I'm all for supporting and helping when people are in crisis, of course. But what we're seeing here is that we know for a fact, it has been documented, ISIS has already come out and claimed these realities, that they are using the refugee crisis itself to bring terrorists into Europe. According to Sputnik, they're reporting that German MEPs are suggesting that EU states should be subject to economic sanctions and that their financing should be cut off. That's according to the German newspaper Die Welt, who reported that fact. They state that according to latest estimates, Germany invests more money into the EU budget than other countries. They state at the same time the greatest benefit from the EU budget goes to the Czech Republic and to Poland as well. So they're stating here that to motivate them to solidarity, German MEPs are proposing to introduce corresponding measures. Yes, payments to countries that do not adhere to the European law or states which do not cooperate by reception of refugees must be reduced. Do you hear that? Reception. If you do not accept the refugees, yes, then support to you will be reduced. That's according to the head of the Budget Control Committee in the European Parliament, who told Die Welt on Wednesday. They state here that such countries as Czech Republic, Poland, Slovakia, and Hungary have strictly opposed the implementation of mandatory EU quota schemes to relocate thousands of refugees throughout the bloc, which was established in 2015.
British newspaper The Sunday Times has reported that Britain's exit from the European Union could be delayed until at least late 2019. Times cited sources who were briefed by government ministers as saying that the UK was too chaotic to start the two-year process early next year. Since the UK voted to leave the EU on June 23rd, views have differed over when the UK should invoke Article 50, which sets the clock ticking on the two-year deadline to leave the bloc. Prime Minister Theresa May, who campaigned for Britain to remain in the EU, now leads a cabinet of ministers from either side of the debate. She said that would not trigger the Brexit talks this year as Britain needs time to prepare.
Venezuela's President Nicolás Maduro has announced a 50% hike in minimum wage that will take effect on September 1st. The pay rise is for employees both in the public and private sectors. Maduro described the hike as historic, claiming it to be higher than any other pay rise in the country's recent history. Maduro highlighted that the move will reinforce other economic measures by the government and improve the purchase power of the population. However, opposition leaders cast doubt on the effectiveness of the economic measure.
Instead of helping workers, this rise will only make essential goods more expensive and unaffordable for customers.
However, supporters of the government claim products have been sold at higher prices by private businessmen as part of an economic war waged against President Maduro's administration. They say authorities will sanction companies that increase their products' prices beyond legal regulations.
The socialist government will impede overpricing by capitalists and will support the working class with even more salary rises.
On the streets, citizens hope their economic hardship won't get worse as a consequence of problems between the government and the private sector.
Every time the government announces a salary rise, salesmen increase prices of all essential goods, and inflation gets even worse.
In the West, extreme heat combined with thick smoke from wildfires and air pollution from millions of cars is making the air in some places dangerous to breathe.
Back in the 80s, thick, hazy smog was as much a part of the Los Angeles skyline as the Hollywood sign. Today, while LA County's air quality has improved, health officials say pollution kills 1,300 people a year, making it the deadliest air in the country. According to a new study, that number is more than triple the number of air pollution-related deaths in New York and twice the total in Texas. In California, heavy traffic, industrial commerce, lack of rain, and wildfires are all to blame.
Bad air and high levels of pollution become deadly to our society because chronically people are ingesting these particulate molecules.
The pollution in California is so bad, federal health standards for the ozone levels have only been met 3 days out of this entire summer. Experts believe with another heat wave hitting the West Coast and sticking around through the middle of the week, the air quality will continue to get worse.
Look, guys, we can talk stats, how much rainfall, records, schmeckers, all that stuff. But at the end of the day, it's about people, life, and property. Simple as that. Behind the historic rainfall totals are real-life stories of heartbreak, pain, and the struggle to stay strong. You know, you can feel her pain and her resilience. Guys, we are not trying to sugarcoat this situation in any way, shape, or form. It is awful. You know, these folks, they do not know what's going to happen to their homes, their belongings, but for a moment, we're just asking you, try to walk in their shoes. Open your eyes, open your hearts just a little more, see beyond the damage, let the pictures tell the stories. There are times when real-life superheroes are born. We want you to watch this gentleman. His name is David. He was in the right place and risked his own life to save this woman and her dog. Just a normal guy who did an extraordinary thing, and there are more people out there rescuing other people and countless animals. We're never going to know their names, but we can certainly embrace their kindness. And then there are stories of people who, of course, may have lost everything, and yet they are still clinging to hope. These are the faces of the flood.
My name is Josh. I will be 14 tomorrow. I was born in Atlanta, Georgia, as Sabrina and as a female, but I'm male. I identify as male.
Do you get people calling you she and girl a lot?
Yeah, I look like a girl, and I wear a lot of makeup and long nails and hair and stuff.
But do you see it as these things are female about me?
They are feminine, but not female.
Questions about identity, gender, sex. Don't put somebody on the spot. We have created a school where everybody gets to be themselves.
I was bullied in school for a few years. Most of my friends that are trans or gender fluid have attempted suicide or self-harm or have had addiction problems. I have too. I'd be walking down the street and, you know, I'd hear tranny or fag. I feel like that's just a problem with the being bullied and not being accepted. The Pride School Atlanta, it's a private school for LGBT plus affirming people, so you don't have to be, you know, gay or whatever to get in.
Josh came out when he was in 8th grade at his previous public school. And I think something that I'm looking forward to particularly about being at Pride School is the school environment will not just be tolerating of the transgender piece, but will be affirming, accepting, and celebrating of the transgender piece.
This is my wife, Heather, for those who don't know her. Without her, none of this would have happened.
We're kind of gender warriors. We're gender warriors.
That's how we identified ourselves when we first got together.
Yeah.
Gender warriors in love.
I don't think gender is finite. To me, it's more of a feeling of how I feel most comfortable.
Catholic priest has confessed he sexually abused around 20 boys decades ago on the US-controlled island of Guam, but was never prosecuted. Other church members were aware of the situation, but only suggested the priest pray and repent for his sins. In a phone interview with a local radio station, the priest said it was possible that he abused an altar boy. He also stated he regretted his actions. The priest went on to say that he assaulted several children. One of the alleged victims made his testimony public years after the incident took place.
One night in the early morning hours, I was awakened by someone touching my private area, my penis, and massaging and masturbating me. I was shocked, very frightened. I told him to please leave me alone. But he continued to do what he was doing.
Despite the priest's confession, he can't be prosecuted under the current law. Due to the timing of his supposed crimes, the statute of limitations for child molestation stands at just 2 years. In a separate interview, he claimed he now knows that what he did was wrong, but at the time, he saw no fault in his actions.
At that time, I got the impression that kids liked it, so I went ahead with it. But now, of course, I know it's wrong, and I'm paying for it.
על הקמת מדינה יהודית בארץ ישראל, היא מדינת ישראל.
1948. Jews celebrated the state's establishment. A catastrophe, according to Palestinians who protest the outcome and implications of statehood to date. The premise of that catastrophe, say Palestinian leaders, is grounds for a lawsuit.
Based on this ill-omened promise, hundreds of thousands of Jews were moved from Europe and elsewhere to Palestine at the expense of our Palestinian people, whose parents and grandparents had lived for thousands of years on the soil of their homeland.
The promise refers to the Balfour Declaration, a 1917 letter from then UK Foreign Secretary Lord Arthur Balfour pledging Britain's support for the establishment of a home for Jewish people in Palestine. Israel's National Archives are full of correspondences around that promise, including letters of protest from Palestinian leaders at the time. 100 years after the fact, the Palestinian Authority says they'll sue Britain's government in an international court. Palestinian Authority members declined to be interviewed for this story, but a prominent Palestinian human rights attorney told me that legally there probably are no grounds for this lawsuit. It's about making a point. Israeli leaders dismissed the threat.
When it comes to the Palestinians, I want to use a very specific word. Those are gimmicks. It has no content. It has no international meaning.
Other critics, including former British Secretary Malcolm Rifkind, say a lawsuit is unlikely and would have no legal force.